Hi Reds, Manchester United are facing a serious selection headache ahead of their second Premier League fixture of the season against Ipswich Town at Old Trafford. And after the disappointing 2-0 defeat to Hull City on the opening weekend, Michael Carrick now has some very important decisions to make. United simply cannot afford another poor performance, especially in front of the home supporters, and the pressure will already be building for the players and the coaching staff to respond immediately. The defeat against Hull City exposed several weaknesses in this Manchester United side, particularly defensively. United struggled in physical duels, failed to deal properly with set pieces, and looked vulnerable whenever Hull attacked with intensity. It was the kind of performance that leaves supporters asking serious questions about whether this squad has enough quality and depth to compete consistently in the Premier League. Now, with Ipswich Town coming to Old Trafford, Carrick needs to find the right balance between fixing those defensive problems and making sure United have enough creativity and attacking threat going forward. One of the biggest blows comes in the form of Amad Diallo. The Ivorian winger is expected to be unavailable for around 6 weeks after suffering what has been described as a training ground niggle late last week. Amad has become an increasingly important player in United's attacking structure, particularly because of his ability to carry the ball, create chances, and operate between the lines. Losing him at this stage of the campaign is a real setback, especially when United are already trying to build momentum after a disappointing opening day result. The question now is, who should Carrick trust to fill that void? Does he go for a more direct winger who can stretch Ipswich's defence, or does he choose a player who can come inside and help United dominate possession? These are the little tactical decisions that could have a huge impact on Sunday's match. Mason Mount is another major doubt for the Ipswich clash. The England international picked up a minor injury during pre-season and his availability remains uncertain. Mount's movement, pressing and ability to connect midfield with attack can be extremely valuable in Carrick's system, but there is absolutely no reason for United to rush him back if he is not fully ready. The season is long, and protecting players from aggravating injuries has to be a priority. Then there is Manuel Ugarte. The midfielder remains a confirmed long-term absentee and will not be available for this match. His absence is particularly significant because United need physicality and defensive protection in the middle of the pitch. Ugarte's ability to win tackles, break up attacks and provide cover in front of the defence would certainly be useful after what we saw against Hull City. There is, however, some encouraging news at Carrington. Matthijs de Ligt has returned to grass training, which is a positive step in his recovery. But despite returning to training, the Dutch centre-back was not considered match fit enough to feature over the weekend and remains a doubt for the Ipswich game. United supporters will certainly be hoping that de Ligt can return sooner rather than later, because the defensive performance against Hull City has only increased the urgency for experienced defensive reinforcements. And this brings us to perhaps the biggest talking point coming out of the opening weekend, Manchester United's defence. Gary Neville did not hold back when discussing the defeat to Hull City, saying, "That defence isn't good enough. They do need a centre-back. They do need fullbacks. You don't want to be conceding goals on set pieces and getting outdone on duels and sort of what would be the fight in the game." Those comments will certainly resonate with many United supporters. The problem is not simply about conceding goals, it is about how United conceded them. When a team struggles with set pieces, second balls and physical battles, questions naturally have to be asked about the defensive structure, concentration and personnel. For me, this is exactly why the transfer window remains so important for Manchester United. The club cannot simply hope that everything will magically improve. If Carrick's side wants to challenge for major honours, the squad needs genuine competition for places and enough quality to cope with injuries. And there is another huge development on the transfer front. Manchester United are expected to officially announce Carlos Baleba today, with the midfielder set to become another major addition to Carrick's squad. If completed as expected, Baleba could bring exactly the kind of athleticism, aggression, and ball-winning ability that United have been missing in midfield. His physical presence could give the team a completely different dimension, particularly in matches where United need to win second balls and compete in intense midfield battles. The arrival of Baleba could therefore be massive for Manchester United. Imagine a midfield capable of combining technical quality with physical power and defensive intensity. That is the kind of midfield many United fans have been crying out for. But will Baleba be ready to make an immediate impact? And should Carrick throw him straight into the starting 11 once he is available, or should the club manage his introduction carefully? There is also major movement in the left-back department. Manchester United have contacted Jorge Mendes to inquire about Alejandro Balde. The Barcelona left-back is reportedly on United's radar, but any potential agreement would depend on the overall financial conditions. It would not simply be about Barcelona's asking price. Bald's significant salary is also an important factor that Manchester United would have to consider. Bald would certainly offer United a different profile at left-back. His pace, attacking ability and willingness to push forward could give United much more threat from the left side. However, the financial side of the deal cannot be ignored. Manchester United have already spent heavily this summer, so the club must decide whether Bald represents value for money or whether there are better alternatives available. Then there is Lewis Hall. Manchester United continue to monitor the Newcastle United fullback, but reports suggest United would have to make Hall the most expensive left-back in football history if they are going to convince Newcastle to sell him this month. That is an extraordinary valuation and immediately raises another question. Is Lewis Hall really worth that kind of money? United desperately need defensive improvement, but spending an enormous fee simply because a position needs strengthening would not necessarily be smart recruitment. The club must make sure every major investment fits the long-term project, and there could also be movement on the outgoing side. Aston Villa are reportedly interested in Joshua Zirkzee, with their interest coming amid uncertainty over Ollie Watkins' future and reported consideration of a move from Saudi Pro League side Al Hilal. Zirkzee's future at Manchester United has been the subject of speculation, and if a suitable offer arrives, the club may have another important decision to make. Personally, I believe Zirkzee's situation deserves careful consideration. He has qualities that can be useful in a possession-based team, but United must decide whether he is genuinely part of Carrick's long-term plans. If he is, then the club should give him a clear role and the confidence to develop. If he is not, selling him could potentially free up funds and squad space for another attacking option. But one thing is absolutely certain: Manchester United cannot afford to make emotional decisions. The defeat to Hull City was a huge wake-up call. Nobody expected United to be perfect on the opening weekend, but losing 2-0 while looking vulnerable in the defensive and physical aspects of the game is something Carrick must address quickly. Ipswich Town will arrive at Old Trafford with confidence, and United know that another poor result would immediately increase the pressure. The home supporters will demand intensity from the first whistle. They will want to see players winning duels, pressing together, defending set pieces properly, and showing the hunger that was missing at times against Hull. For Carrick, this is a massive test of his managerial ability. Can he react to the problems exposed in the first match? Can he find the right tactical structure despite injuries? Can he get the best out of the players available to him? And most importantly, can he make Old Trafford a difficult place for opponents again? In my opinion, United should approach this match with far greater intensity. The midfield has to be stronger, the defensive line has to be more aggressive, and the team must be much better organised when defending set pieces. There is no point dominating possession if the team continues to concede cheap goals from avoidable situations. United also need to show more character. Football is not only about tactics and formations. Sometimes you have to win the ugly battles. You have to put your body on the line, win the second ball, make the important interception, and fight for every single yard. That is what Manchester United supporters want to see. The transfer activity surrounding Carlos Baleba, Alejandro Balde and Lewis Hall suggests that the club understands where some of the weaknesses are. But transfers alone will not solve everything. Carrick and his coaching staff must also get more from the players already at Old Trafford. So, Reds, what do you think? Should Carlos Baleba immediately walk into Carrick's midfield once he is officially announced, or should the manager introduce him gradually? The season is still young, but every point matters.